Hello and welcome to the Intentional Brief, your weekly video update on the one big thing in cybersecurity for middle market companies, their investors, and management teams. I'm your host, Shay Colson, managing partner at Intentional Cybersecurity, and you can find us online at intentionalcyber.com. Today is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, and we've got some dark patterns emerging from the threat actor space that we should cover off here today in terms of situational awareness and see what kind of changes or preparations we can make from the signals that we're getting out in the market. CBS News has updated their story from April 2024 about the scattered spider group of attackers now famous and or infamous for hacking MGM and others. The part that stands out and I think merits new attention from 60 Minutes is that these groups include young Western, read US, UK, males collaborating with Russian threat actor groups to carry out these attacks, using both technical capabilities from the Russian groups and Western cultural fluency and English fluency to attack those help desks as a vulnerable piece of an enterprise. At the same time, Google published a report last week that similar mechanics are being seen with another group related to this same attack pattern called the Com, which is a loosely held group of, again, young men, mix of Western and Russian, engaging with a combined technical and social attack space to target Salesforce data. What they're doing is they're impersonating IT personnel to break into company Salesforce tools and then using that access for both data theft and extortion. We've already seen this take down UK retailers, which we covered a few weeks back, including Co-op at Marks & Spencer, and now that trend has made it here to the United States. Last week, Victoria's Secret had to delay their earnings call due to a cybersecurity incident, and yesterday we saw an 8K filing notice to the SEC of a material impact due to a cyber incident from United Natural Foods, a distributor for grocery stores here in the US, who also coincidentally just held their earnings call. And so I think this is a pattern we need to recognize and start to adapt to, because we're seeing the pattern become more than just a one-off, more than just an MGM thing. And this pattern of using softer areas of the enterprise to gain compromise, namely attacking help desks and then using social engineering to gain legitimate access, is something that is hard to defeat and takes extra attention. The difference here is hackers are not breaking into these systems. They're logging in after compromising a human to get them to grant access. The second big difference is that the attackers are now timing their attacks to exert maximum leverage against their victims, i.e. in these cases just before their earnings call. But there's also a real human impact. The UNFI, the United Natural Foods breach, is starting to lead to bare shelves across the country, including here where we live in Washington State. I tried to buy burgers for the end of the year school barbecue yesterday at Costco, and Costco was completely out of frozen beef patties, and the chef store, or cash and carry, whatever you want to call it, only had a few boxes left. So we bought what we could, but there are no more, and it does not appear that there are any more coming today as UNFI continues to struggle to stand their systems back up. So given all of this in the market, what should you do for your firm? Well, I would say just a few things. One, review your authentication policies for remote support, including things like password resets, phone or authenticator changes, and focus especially on how elevated accounts like admins are handled. Step number 2, harden your authentication for third-party systems. I'm thinking here about Salesforce and the others that the attackers are targeting, and then conduct an account review to ensure that the accounts that you have in those systems are still required. Third, review your ransomware preparedness status, your IR plans, your backups, your monitored endpoint detection and response capabilities, etc. You won't be able to get it all done if you've got significant gaps, but I do think you should make sure that the things are in place, they're working the way you think they're working, and they're going to be there to help you if you need them. That's monitoring those alerts, that's making viable backups, that's testing all of these things. And I know this show is focused mostly on the middle market, but we're now facing the threats that these larger public companies are facing and need to use this time to make the investments, because once those fully come down market, we will be out of time and we will have either done the work or not, and either paid the price or reaped the benefits. The thing about threat actors in terms of their both TTPs and their focus is it almost always moves down market. So let's make the most of this advanced warning. From a fundraising perspective this week, absolutely massive fundraising announcements totaling more than $43 billion in newly committed capital, led by a blockbuster announcement from Thoma Bravo, who raised $34.4 billion for a trio of new funds, $24.3 billion for their 16th flagship buyout fund, $8.1 billion for their 5th middle market fund, and 1.8 billion euros for their first Europe-focused fund. And not to be outdone, some other large, well-known players in the space, Neuberger Berman raised more than $4 billion for their second GP-led secondaries fund. Carlyle Alpinvest raised $4.1 billion for their 9th co-investment fund, and both are obviously very big players in the space, and these are significant funding announcements in their own right. They just happen to be on the same week as the Thoma Bravo blockbuster. So as a reminder, you can find all of the articles we discussed in the comments section below. You can find back issues and written transcripts of these videos at intentionalcyber.com, and we will see you next week for another edition of the Intentional Brief.